Turn on your phone. Set the system language to simplified Chinese and look closely at the characters. Their strokes seem to be consistently thick, similar to those of Latin sans serif typefaces like Helvetica. This kind of typeface belongs to a category known as Heiti. You can find it as the default font for Chinese on almost every digital device nowadays, and that's not a coincidence.
汉字书以前记嘛，那当时的计算机无论是存储汉字信息还是存储字体，它都是一个不太可能的事情。
Half a century ago, Chinese had to learn English to use a computer.
有一种观点认为，就是说汉字会是阻碍中国进入信息时代的一个绊脚石。
This is the story of cultural preservation and global integration that ushered China into the digital era. In the series Undertone China, we explore the untold history of how connecting to the world made China what it is today.
在这一版本的苹果电脑里面，它用了那个8×8像素的汉字。
拉丁字母你只需要5×5的像素就都可以把它很清楚地表达出来了。
Digital displays are made up of pixels. In the early days of computing, when computer screens generally had low resolutions, fonts were designed on a matrix of dots to ensure they would be legible.
但是汉字就不一样了，汉字有简单有复杂。
Liu Yuli is a type designer. He's been in love with digital fonts ever since his first attempt at pixel art.
字体设计方面，我还是一个年轻的这个后辈晚辈。
In addition to his design work, the 29-year-old is also an amateur typeface historian.
我很好奇，我们现在所做的一切，它究竟是怎么来的？最简单的汉字，你比如说1，数字1、数字2这种，有几行就够了。那我们也有很常用的字，但是它写起来非常复杂的，把一个营塞到5个像素里，它无论如何是显示不出来的。
To display Chinese, thousands of characters needed to be individually tailored to pixel boxes like this one. This was a tremendous undertaking.
macOS 9就是第一代这个官方支持中文的那个操作系统。
But getting Chinese to display on early Macs posed a tricky problem for programmers.
Now, if you think about it for a moment, all the global communications technology that we have, telegraphs, typewriters, computers, keyboards, none of it was designed with Chinese language or even non-Western languages in mind.
This is a clip of cultural historian Jing Cu speaking at a 2020 panel on Chinese tech organized by the research group Data and Society. In her 2022 book, Kingdom of Characters, Su describes the status of the Latin alphabet in modern theoretical circles as a conceptual technology that forms the bedrock of Western science and technology.
But to enter the information age, it is incredibly important to get their language into the system.
Another historian, Stanford professor Thomas S. Moloney, has traced early attempts to produce a Chinese typewriter and computer. Beginning in the 1950s, the Massachusetts-based Graphic Arts Research Foundation, or GARF, received military funding to research a Chinese-language computing system to improve communication among men. Development could take decades, but by the early 1980s, the third generation of GARF's work, Sinotype 3, could produce Chinese characters on screen in real time.
可能是一些计算机科学家在做这个事情，动机很简单，就是能用就行，所以它势必会在这个我们所说的美学角度会有一些欠缺，说人话就是字不好看。
GARF wasn't the only group worried about the practicality of characters. To understand why, we need to shift gears away from computers for a bit. Beginning in the 1930s, Chinese intellectuals and government officials expressed increasing concern that the country's complicated writing system was an obstacle to widespread literacy. Around the same time GARF began its work, the newly founded People's Republic of China unveiled a simplified writing system. New characters required new typefaces, and in the 1960s, a national motion was passed to standardize Chinese typography. The task was given to the Shanghai Printing Technology Research Institute.
这里老前辈的照片。
To promote the People's Republic's newly simplified characters, one of the institute's first jobs was to design an attractive typeface for the selected works of Mao Zedong, one of the most popular books in the country at the time.
那个时候创新设计不是现在的电脑设计，而是手工画稿子的。后来呢，这款字体经过了2年的时间设计好了，宋一体，还跟它一块配套的黑体。
Unwittingly, they also helped set the standard that would power China's digital revolution. The use of Songti fonts in printed materials dates back centuries, but Heiti is far newer. Its rise can be traced back to the late 19th century, when Japanese type foundries took a grotesque typeface used for Latin languages and adapted it into Gochiku. The result was a blocky but clear typeface that remained legible even when used with imperfect or primitive printing equipment. Although Songti continued to dominate, Heiti soon became one of the most commonly used fonts for printing characters. Just as China's typesetters took inspiration from different parts of the world, its early computer scientists needed some help too.
We seek an open world.
In 1972, Richard Nixon's visit to China loosened the restrictions on scientific exchanges between China and the West after a decades-long freeze. 1 year later, a group of Chinese news agency officials got the chance to visit Japan, where they were shown cutting-edge computers for typesetting and publication. According to Tu's book, this visit convinced China that its archaic hot lead printing technique had fallen behind the rest of the world. A state-led project was quickly initiated in 1974 to help the country catch up to its peers. The Shanghai Printing Technology Research Institute took the lead in designing dot matrix font, this time for screens.
当时我们是第一家做点阵字的单位。
They used specially made metal sticks to draw identical dots on paper. After 7 years, they had produced designs for 6,000 of these dot matrix characters. In 1980, China turned down Goff's offer to collaborate on the Chinese computing system.
This is part of the self-reliance mentality.
After the collapse of Sino-Soviet collaboration in the 1950s and 60s, China's leaders wanted their own system.
It knew that it had to learn from the outside, borrow Western tech, but it never in its mind thought for a moment that it would become more like the West.
Instead, China funded a domestic project led by Wang Xuan of Peking University. His team was able to build a computerized typesetting system from scratch. Yet, at least one computer scientist saw the global boom in personal computing, not as an occasion for circling the wagons, but as a commercial opportunity. And he had an unlikely partner. Located 100 miles from Shanghai, this obscure factory in the small city of Changzhou was the birthplace of the first commercialized digital Heiti font, a forerunner of the fonts almost everyone in China uses today.
我们谈了很多，就找到这个地方，因为在这里还有一些字幕室，我要的是字幕室的这些字稿。
At this factory, Huang Kejian, a Chinese-American scientist and businessman, built a system that bridged Chinese fonts with the world.
那是1988年。
Until now, computers have been used to revolutionize science and industry. But the great news for 1988 is that computers have finally gotten powerful enough to have the same impact in the arts and the humanities.
我是排了3个小时队，还有一些教授们。
Huang was a young student in experimental phonetics at the University of California, Berkeley, when he experienced something that would change his life.
突然灯光一灭，再一起来以后，乔布斯是思想者，这样摆在身上面一台机器，拿黑布一盖着，然后把布一撕开，唰 ，next。后来有一个教授在中间突然站起来，说我 don't need us， 他说这个世界不需要我，有他们就行了，还要我教什么课啊？
And let's go down a little bit further.
The next computer used something called the display PostScript engine to generate on-screen graphics. It was a watershed creation. Fonts that use PostScript graphics are made up of curves, which can be resized through simple mathematical transformations without shapeshifting like the pixel fonts.
我就觉得那中文这个市场更大，西方尤其在美国开始做日本字库了，但是呢，我们问了很多家都不准备做中文字库， 那我就来试试做中文字户。
After graduating from Berkeley, Huang returned to China and set up Sinotype. He invited type designers from the Shanghai Printing Institute to work on the designs and oversee the development of his digital fonts.
这是最早的那10套字，你看都是从这里，这盒子都是我做的。
Pretty soon, his gamble began to pay off.
到10月份就拿出了4套字跟Adobe一起在 PP 展览里面就展出了我们的字库。
According to Huang, his company signed contracts with Adobe and Apple in 1996.
2002年的时候是 macOS 10.2，才做专门的系统。细黑这个字呢是适合当年屏幕的显示，在屏幕上表现非常好。
Apple's decision to use the Sinotype Heiti typeface on early iPhones and Macs helped make Heiti the digital standard it is today. Microsoft, Google, and emerging Chinese companies have followed suit with their own versions.
也有生意啊，有需求啊。全球一体化的话，你必须有bilingual的东西出现，当然是字库起了很大的作用。
我觉得我们讲述这个汉字数字化的这个过程，它也可以作为中国的现代化过程的一个侧面。
Today, young designers like Liu are building on these legacies.
这个字体今年要开发成字库。
The story of the digitalization of Hanzi or Chinese characters is complex. Designers from across the Hanzi sphere working in simplified and traditional Chinese, Japanese kanji, Korean hanja, and Vietnamese chunong have inspired and borrowed from each other for decades. Many of their stories remain untold.
有一句话说的不是挺好的嘛，就是说任何在你出生之前已经诞生的技术，你会视为理所当然；然后在你出生当中诞生的技术，你会认为是改变世界的很重要的东西。然后如果你没有见识过的呢，它就是像魔法一样。
这是我家鸟，其实这是坐在2个字母里的。
我们有了这个机会，可以去做更多的事情，也能做更多更新奇的探索吧。